All right, good morning, everyone. Tuesday, November 13th. We're happy to have you with us on the stream, and we're talking about the big topic of the day, which is Titan tech company Amazon, of course, picking their two locations for their split, headquarters number 2, HQ2 in Arlington, Virginia, and Queens, New York. We have a lot of those statistics and kind of information to throw at you in a little bit. And we're going to be talking the pros and cons of this decision, as well as people are really coming out on social media to talk about this today. There will also be an official press conference at 1:30. That's Eastern time here on the East Coast, from the area there in Arlington, where they are slated to build this sort of mini campus for their half headquarter number 2. Check out this video that our social media editor Raisa created for us with a little bit of the information for you. And we will certainly be discussing a lot of those, like I mentioned, pros and cons, and the questions that still remain to be answered about this move. But that will all come later this afternoon. And of course, we're anticipating that press conference at 1:30 Eastern time here in Arlington. So a lot of new things coming to the area. We're excited for it. We're going to jump over to what is happening live here before we take it back in to discuss more about Amazon. Take a look at this. This is the National Action Network Conference. It's an annual conference about the civil rights movement. Many Democratic lawmakers are speaking about this. This is in D.C. right now. Senator Elizabeth Warren is up speaking. Let's check it out.
Our children every day. You bet. And we have to stand up to the corruption of Donald Trump and the Trump administration. Government is not there so that people can line their own pockets. Government is there to serve the people, and we need to hold this administration accountable. And the core. Voting is the beating heart of democracy. Voting is power, and we must protect the right to vote. You know, what we've seen in Florida, and especially in Georgia, is a national disgrace. When it comes to elections, there should be no hesitation. Every vote matters, period. If you can't get more Americans to vote for you than the other guy or gal, then you lose. It's that simple. Politicians are supposed to compete over how many voters they can persuade to come vote for them, not how many American citizens they can disqualify, discourage, or demoralize. We need to stand up against voter suppression efforts like voter ID laws that are targeted at communities of color and restrictions on early voting. We need to put an end to partisan gerrymandering that keeps votes from counting. And as a national party, we should get behind a constitutional amendment establishing an unquestioned, unassailable, nationally recognized right to vote. Yes, we have our work cut out for us on this. And I want to be clear, I am in this fight all the way. Now, you all are going to have a lot of speakers while you're here today, and there are a lot of topics we could talk about. But I wanted to take just a little bit of the time I've got to talk about a couple of issues that haven't quite made it to the headlines. And these are about, I want to talk about housing and I want to talk about criminal justice reform for just a minute on both of these. So let me start on housing. You know, many of you know that we have a black-white wealth gap in America, and we've had it since we first started measuring by race back in the 1940s. Big black-white wealth gap. One of the principal reasons for that is access to housing. Because housing is the way that working families, that middle-class families, build wealth over time. You know how this works. Instead of making rent payments, you're able to pay on a house, you build up equity in a house. It is the #1 retirement plan in America, is pay off your house and live on your Social Security. It's the way that one generation gives a boost to another one. If grandma and grandpa are lucky enough to be able to live out their days in their home, that home goes to the next generation, and that lifts up their fortunes and lifts up the fortunes of the next generation. But we live in an America now that has a housing crisis. Families are paying more and more and more for housing, and fewer are able to buy, and they're shut out of the housing market. But what we have to stop to acknowledge is that this hits communities of color hardest. And the problem we have is one of high costs and low home ownership rates. And the more rents go up, the more people are unable to save to be able to get into their own homes. Now, it's also been the case that we have watched communities of color targeted when people were able to get home ownership and pushed out of their homes. We saw this in the lead up to the financial crisis in 2008. Michael Smith is somebody I wrote about in my latest book. He grew up in Chicago, and all he ever wanted was a safe place for his family. He loved his home. You should hear him talk about his home, about the hedge where the birds nested and how he wouldn't trim it back in the spring until after they'd been able to have the little baby birds had been born and were able to fly. He had saved up from his very first paycheck as a young man until he was able, he and his wife, to buy a home. They raised their kids are growing up in that home. He had a plain 30-year fixed mortgage. Every month that you make a payment, the amount you owe goes down just a little bit. You do better over time. And then he, like so many others, got targeted for a mortgage that was going to do so much more. And we all know how that worked out. It was a scam. And Michael's story is not unique. This has been a place where time after time after time, communities of color have been targeted for the worst mortgages and then ultimately targeted for more foreclosures. In fact, I want to back up the history just a little bit and start it just in our more modern era in living memory with redlining. The official policy of the United States government until 1968 was to draw big maps and to say, we're going to put federal funds, taxpayer help, behind homeowners being able to buy homes, get a mortgage and buy a home, except in areas where they draw a red line around them. And of course, the areas they drew a red line around were communities of color. Finally, in 1978, the federal government said, well, that's no longer officially our policy. Did it fix everything? No, not even close. You'd had generation after generation where people had not been able to get into the home market. So what happens? By the time you hit the 1990s, communities of color are back on the screen. Only what they're back on the screen for are mortgages like the kind sold to Michael Smith. The idea being that they will be targeted for the worst of the mortgages out there. And look, this is not just some theory floating around. Look at the banks that actually had to sign legal settlements and pay money out for targeting communities of color for discriminatory mortgages. Bank of America, J.P. Morgan, Wells Fargo, SunTrust. These are financial institutions that said, we can increase our profits by targeting communities of color and selling them the worst mortgages, and then when things blow up, taking those homes back from people. Just so you know, African Americans and Latinos during the crash that followed were 70% more likely to be foreclosed against than white families. Wow. Think about that. That's 10 years ago, right, that this was going on. In 2013, mortgage discrimination had not disappeared. African Americans and Latinos were more than twice as likely to be turned down for mortgages as white families with the same credit ratings. And in 2017, last year, a study showed discrimination in lending based on race in 61 metropolitan areas around the country. So the way I see this is two parts to it. The first is the housing crisis is real. Families are struggling to be able to build up some wealth through housing. Families are struggling just to be able to have housing, to be able to pay their rent. Both halves, whether you're renting or trying to buy. And the second part to it is that discrimination is real. It's there, and we've got to acknowledge it. And the main response so far from most Democrats even has been, let's just outlaw discrimination and then count on the Attorney General to enforce the laws. How's that working out? So, I had another idea, and this is one I wanted to pitch to you. We're talking about things you're putting on your agenda, what you want to push for. I want to talk to you just briefly about a housing bill that I've put together. And here's the idea behind this housing bill. This housing bill says the federal government, it's time for us to reinvest in housing. We used to do this, invest in housing, and I just want to make the pitch here for everybody. Investing in housing and putting some taxpayer muscle behind housing is very much like investing in roads and bridges. It builds up the things we need to build a future and gives people opportunity going forward. So here's my plan. Federal government puts in the money to build about 3.2 million new housing units across this country. And it's true in urban areas, it's true in rural areas, places where housing has degraded and we need more housing. Lots of new housing has gone in America, particularly in urban areas, but it's all been at the top end. The profits are there to be made. If you've got to run through the regulatory stuff and the materials, more profits to be made by building for rich people, building for people at the top end. This is about building for middle class, for working class, for the working poor, for the poor poor. Putting money into 3.2 million housing units. By the way, at its peak, if we put this in, produce about 1.5 million good jobs while you're building it. Good local jobs, jobs that don't go somewhere else, jobs that are there at home. And an independent analysis shows it would reduce rents across the board by about 10%. So think about that for the families who can get into these units, but it also has an effect on the market overall because there's just more availability and more availability of new housing. But it's got a fourth feature to this bill, and that is let's directly face the discrimination that the federal government once supported. So what my bill does or would do is help build wealth in communities of color by giving down payment assistance to residents of formerly redlined areas. So go back to the areas that were cut out of growth and say, we're going to give an extra boost to people who currently live in those areas so they will have the opportunity to get into the housing market, to buy their own homes, to begin to build the intergenerational wealth. And it also has relief for former homeowners who got pushed out of their homes during the housing crisis. And says we're going to do some down payment assistance to get those folks back into the homes. Now, the importance of this bill from my perspective is how many families it would help. How many hardworking families, how many struggling families, how many middle-class families? How many families would get a chance to reduce the rent costs, which means they've got more opportunity to save a little money, more opportunity to save up for a down payment? And how many families would get some help because now there are more housing units, helps bring down prices at that end of the market, more chances to be able to buy a home. It's something that could make a difference, not just for the 3.2 million families that would end up in these units, but for entire markets. But here's the part I want to tell you. We could pay for this without costing working Americans, working class Americans, one thin dime. So here's what I want you to know about paying for it. There's a way to pay for this. And that is to say that the families that would have paid estate taxes when somebody dies, back during the George W. Bush administration, not so very long ago, should have to pay a progressive tax upon death. It's an estate tax. Put the estate tax, just strengthen the estate tax just a little and make it more progressive. It would affect the 10,000 wealthiest families in America. And here's the part. I talk to people here in Washington, and you know what they tell me? They say, you never do that. I said, wait a minute. Something that would help build 3.2 million housing units across America, something that would help millions and millions of families, produce 1.5 million jobs, and you're telling me it would never happen because the 10,000 richest families in America wouldn't like it? Well, this is the fundamental question. Who do you think government is supposed to work for? Right. Do you think it's only supposed to work for the 10,000 richest families, or do you think it's supposed to work for the rest of America? Because if you think it's supposed to work for the rest of America, I hope you'll take a look at this housing bill and get behind it. We need some energy behind this thing. So I hope it's something you'll take a look at. I want to talk about one other thing. My time is short, but there's something that I think has to stay front and center on our radar screen, and that's the criminal justice system. Yeah. Let's just cut to the heart of the matter here. The criminal justice system is broken, and race lies right at the center of the problem. I just want to talk about the data for 1 minute. For exactly the same crimes, African Americans are more likely to be detained than whites. They are more likely to be arrested than whites. They are more likely to be prosecuted than whites. They are more likely to be wrongfully convicted than whites. And they are more likely to receive longer sentences than whites. We have a problem in the criminal justice system. Now, I have a bill with Cory Booker about dignity for incarcerated women. I love this bill. We're starting to make some change. But mostly in Congress, we're working around the edges of this problem. We need to take more assertive action to rework the system. And that starts right here in Washington. And I just want to put one piece on the table. Evidence indicates that blacks and whites use marijuana at about the same rates, but that African Americans are 4 times more likely to be arrested for marijuana possession than whites. So I have a bipartisan bill, Republicans and Democrats, that would end federal arrests for marijuana in states that have acted to build a more thoughtful and rational law on drug possession, which is our overwhelming majority now. It is a start on reform, and I just, again, want to get that one in front of you because I think it's a step toward making a real difference, and we cannot give up on this. But we've got a Washington that works great right now. It works fabulously well for the rich and the powerful. For everybody else, it's not working so well. We are in some really tough fights, and we face a lot of really important issues. I'm not here to tell you that housing discrimination or criminal justice reform is any more important or less important than any of the other issues facing Black America today. I get it. We need to protect the vote. We need to protect health care. We need to protect Social Security. It is a long list that we need to work on. But for me, the key is to say that we are in this fight. We don't look at our list and say the list is too long or the list is too hard. We look at our list and we say, let's lace up the gloves and get in this fight. It is an honor to have the opportunity to fight alongside you. It is an honor to have the opportunity to fight alongside Reverend Sharpton. I truly believe in the changes we can make together. We are a democracy. There is a whole lot more of us than there is of them. If we come together, we use that power, we build a future, but we got to do it together. No one is going to do it for us. So, thank you all for being part of this fight. Thank you for having me here today. Thank you, Reverend Sharpton. Good to see you. Thank you.
Liz Wine, give her a hand.
Thank you. Thank you.
I think you couldn't get more specific than the bill she laid out. That housing bill with the estate tax is one we definitely need to deal with as we make our tour. And her talking about the issues that we're concerned about in terms of the voting rights bill. So we had 2 senators commit on that so far. But the housing bill and Senator Warren's bill was specific. I told people, don't come rap. Come let us know specifics. And I know for all you old weed smokers, y'all like that marijuana bill. I'm not calling no names, but I saw some of y'all kind of nodding off and your head snapped up when she started talking about she got that weed thing. Some of y'all woke up. Let me recognize before I bring our next speaker, we've got 3 more that we're going to have. Then we're going to shuttle you to lunch, and then we're going to do our visitations. But I want to recognize people, chapter leaders from all around the country that have come because I want, for one, we're grateful that you traveled to come. And second, I'm trying to get y'all into beatdc.com, get y'all a little attention. Head of our Sacramento, California chapter, Reverend Porter's in the house. Catherine Parks from Louisville, Kentucky's in the house. where Brenda Jones, our Richmond, Virginia chapter leader, is here. Why y'all wrote down Coles? I know it's Coles because Elijah's name is Coles. Reverend Toon wrote Jones. Elder Johnson, Charleston, South Carolina. Jamie Bland, Patterson, New Jersey. And Jamie's also the deputy mayor up there. She's not only president of the chapter, she's the deputy mayor. And if I was the mayor, I'd be real nervous because ain't no telling she might get a vision one night, decide to be mayor. Cynthia Dawkins from Newark, New Jersey. Cynthia, all right. Bill Griffin and Dr. Alvin Ponder, our New York City chapter. Nia 2X from Washington, D.C. Where's Nia? Sean Brown, Newport News, Virginia. And Catherine Parks from Louisville, Kentucky. All right, I'm going to be recognizing our chapter leaders throughout the day because I want folks to know this. When we told people that we were serious, Tiffany, about bringing our national group together and lobby, I want y'all to know this is real national. We didn't go out and get some folk from around the corner and bring them down here and call it a national meeting. One of the most passionate and vibrant voices in America, and certainly one of the most courageous members of the House of Representatives, is this next person. He is the one that stood up long before there were indictments and other situations and said that we have the grounds to at least explore impeachment. And I'm telling you that he has not backed down. He has stood up, and I think he has set a climate that is going to bear fruit. And we're honored that he came. He came early because he's always been a part of National Action Network. He is the congressman from the 9th Congressional District in Texas, member of the Financial Services Committee, ranking member of Oversight and Investigations, served as president of Houston NAACP, and he's the assistant whip of the Democratic Party. But I want to emphasize, because we're on C-SPAN, I want to emphasize President Trump. He is a member of, the ranking member of Oversight and Investigations. And the Democrats took the House, and he's a ranking member, so he's even more ranking now, Mr. President. So I'm not trying to start nothing, but you talked about fake news. Well, that's a real news, Congressman Al Green.
Thank you so very much, Reverend. Your words mean a lot to me. I'm so grateful to be with you this morning, friends. And I want you to know that if it is God's will, I will have the preeminent privilege of serving on financial services under the leadership of the chair of the committee, who will be the Honorable Maxine Waters. The Honorable Maxine Waters. I want to just say a couple of things about the Reverend before I go into my message. When the history of this time is recorded, it will show that there was a man who had the courage to take a stand for liberty and justice for all. a man who made a difference in the lives of people that he will never meet and greet, a man who was there for the least among us, the last among us, the lost among us, understanding that the well-off, the well-heeled, and the well-to-do will always fare well. He was there for the least, the last, and the lost. The Honorable Reverend Al Sharpton. I love him. I love him, and if you love him and you know it, why don't you stand up and show it?
One seat over.
Let's stand up and let him know how much we love him. He's our guy. Thank you. Just, if I may, by way of further introduction, so that you can understand why I do the things I do. Just a brief message, a further introduction. I'm the kid who went to work with his father one day. I'm the kid who saw his father do what was required of him. He was a mechanic's helper. If they said, clean up that grease spot, he had to clean that spot. If they said, clean the toilets, he had to clean the toilets. I'm the kid who heard people call my father secretary. And I queried, I wondered, why would they call him secretary? So I did what any child would ask. Why do they call you secretary? I'd never heard my father called secretary. He said, they call me secretary because they know that I can't read and I can't write. And they're making fun of me. Every child wants to believe that his father is Superman. So I had to ask, why would you let them do this to you? Why? And he said, because I want you to be able to read and to write. And isn't it wonderful that we live in a country where the son of a secretary can stand in the well of the Congress of the United States of America and read and write laws for the United States of America? Isn't it wonderful that we live in a country where the son of a secretary can stand in the well of the House and call for the impeachment of the President of the United States of America? So hopefully you understand to a greater extent why I do many of the things I do. I want to help you to understand that there's legislation that's important to us. The Reverend wanted specificities. I want to provide specificities. There's a piece of legislation that we are sponsoring, H.R. 122. It is styled the Law Act, the Living American Wage Act. The Living American Wage Act provides a living wage as well as a livable wage. A livable wage in that no person who works full-time should live below the poverty line. This will index the wage to poverty so that as poverty rises, the wage will rise. It indexes it, making it a living wage because the wage itself lives. The wage is not static, it's dynamic. It's a wage that will always be above the poverty line. And it's a livable wage because currently we have it indexed such that it's about $15 per hour, although I think 20 is a better number, to be quite honest. It is a living, livable wage. This is a piece of legislation that I hope you can find favor with, and I hope that we can work together on. I would call to your attention the Fair Lending for All Act. You heard the Honorable Elizabeth Warren talk about the discrimination in lending. It is real. It is not anecdotal evidence that we have. We have the empirical evidence to substantiate the facts. She has given them to you. I need not go through them. But I just believe that if we can make it a crime to steal your wages, and wage theft is a crime, we can make it a crime for you to discriminate in lending and have criminal penalties so that people who discriminate with intentionality when you're trying to get a loan to start your business, when you're trying to get a loan to build a home, when they do that, they ought to suffer criminal penalties, and quite frankly, somebody ought to go to jail. The Fair Lending for All Act. And then we have the Automated Additional Scoring Act, additional credit scoring. There are people who have paid their bills, their light bill, gas bill, water bill, phone bill, cable bill, but they don't have money in the bank. They don't believe in banking their money. They're probably like my mother. She saw the Great Depression. So rather than believe in First National, she believed in First Mattress. Yeah, and I saw her make many deposits in First Mattress, as well as withdrawals. But persons who pay all of their bills, who pay rent that would exceed a mortgage, I believe that your light bill, gas bill, water bill, phone bill ought to be scored in an automatic system such that you will get credit for that, and that credit can go toward helping your credit score be enhanced so that you can own a home rather than pay rent. That's what I believe. And finally, I will just say this as something for us to do together in terms of demonstration. That was legislation. Demonstration requires action. You are the Action Network. We have to do something about these right-to-work laws. These are laws that prohibit indirectly persons from forming labor unions because the right-to-work laws will allow people who are not a part of the union to get the same benefits as dues-paying members of the union when they finally negotiate. It's sort of like when the team gets ready to get the trophy after having winning the championship. All of the members of the team will get a trophy. And then a guy shows up who was never on the team, didn't have to play, didn't risk being hurt, and he gets a championship trophy too. Everybody ought to be a part or have an opportunity to be a part of a union. And I think that demonstrations are necessary in some cases to help us deal with the right-to-work laws around this country. So I'm going to go to my seat and look forward to some questions from you. And I'm going to do so. But I want you to know that, by the way, I didn't go into impeachment. If there's a question about it, I'll answer it. But I want you to know this. I have no ill feelings toward those who do not support impeachment. None. I want them to just understand that I march to a different beat. I march to the beat of a different drummer. I march to a different beat. I march to the beat of the mother who had her baby torn away from her at the slave auction. I march to the beat of the slave that jumped overboard in shark-infested waters rather than come to slavery in this country. I march to the beat of those who have been locked up and the keys thrown away in jail cells in this country. I march to the beat of a different drummer. So please, march to the beat of your drummer. But let me march and step to the beat that I feel in my heart. And if you do so, I promise you, I will not let you down. Any person who believes that there are S-hole countries in Africa, that there are good people in Charlottesville, that those babies on the border could be taken away from their mothers. Any person who engenders a climate wherein you had someone running for Senate in Mississippi talk about going to a public hanging, and a senator in Florida talking about monkey business. Any person who engenders that kind of climate is a person who is unfit to be president and ought to be impeached. I thank you, President Sharpton. I thank you, everyone. Thank you. God bless you. Thank you. Thank you.
Congressman Al Green. Congressman Al Green. I want to now bring on, as soon as the election was, midterm elections ended last Tuesday, a week ago, and we said we'd be here a week later to bring our leaders from around the country to hear where we're going legislatively. One of the things that we started getting Wednesday morning was questions about 2020. And who gonna run? And I felt it's very premature. We just got the House. We wanted to know what legislation was gonna be. And I made a phone call to Reverend Porter, where Porter go from, our Sacramento, California chapter. And I guess the phone ID wasn't on. He answered the phone saying, Kamala Harris for president. So I told him, y'all can't do that, and then we're nonpartisan. I didn't become concerned till I then called Reverend Stephen Botany in New Jersey, and he answered talking about Kamala Harris for president. So I don't know what she gonna do, nor do we endorse candidates, but I know that there are a lot of y'all that are wondering if she's going to run. And I'll just leave it at that because we got a bunch of reporters in the room, but I will point out Reverend Porter and Reverend Bartley, and Bartley's in another state. He over there in New Jersey. So I just outed them. Now, Virginia started talking about marijuana, but I'll get to that in a minute. I want to bring to the stage, to the platform, I think that if anybody watched the Kavanaugh hearings and saw how gracefully somebody executed a prosecutorial questioning, I don't think anyone has ever done it in history better. The way that she can operate with a real precision but still remain graceful. It's like, some people stab you with a knife and others just use a razor and you don't even know you cut. You walk down the block and your head fall off. That is how she handled the Kavanaugh hearing. She's, of course, the second African-American woman to serve in the Senate, first South Asian American, and she's a member of Homeland Security and Governmental Affairs Committee, as well as our committee, our Select Committee on Intelligence, and as I said, a member of the Judiciary Committee. And we are honored that she always is there when we call on her. Let us hear from, come on in, Mr. Speaker, Congressman Jim Clyburn. Let us hear from the senator from California, Senator Kamala Harris.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning. Reverend Al, I thank you for everything you do throughout the year and bringing us together to be accountable and to respond to the questions and to the issues of concern of all people of our country is so important, and it is something that you give all of us, and I thank you for that. Thank you. So I know we have a lot of folks here. My colleague Mark Warner is here, and the Honorable Clyburn is here. So I'm just going to get right to it. So Reverend Al talked about the midterms, right? And, you know, it's funny. There were a lot of folks who were asking me the morning after the midterms, how do you feel? And my head felt good, but my heart was a little blue. And probably because I had spent some time in Georgia and in Florida. And I knew from being on the ground there, working with our friends and colleagues, Stacey Abrams and Andrew Gillum, I knew, and Bill Nelson in Florida, I knew that there was a legitimate concern about whether votes would actually be counted and whether all people actually had equal access to the polls and whether the rules were being created and set up in a way that was fair to all people and giving all people a right to exercise what they know to be their constitutional right to be heard and participate in a democracy. And of course, votes are still being counted, and there are real concerns about whether the people who are writing the rules are actually doing it in the benefit of the people they're supposed to serve or for self-benefit. And so that's why I woke up the morning after the midterms, feeling a bit of conflict. We had such great wins. A historic number of women to the United States Congress. We had historic wins when you look at what we saw in terms of Lauren Underwood in Illinois. We had Johanna Hayes in Connecticut. We had Ayanna Pressley in Massachusetts. We had Lucy McBath just announced in Georgia. A lot to celebrate. A lot to celebrate. And also, what we know is that a week ago today also reaffirmed the need for us to recommit in this fight for civil rights and social justice for all people. And so I think about it in that context, and now I'll speak a little bit more about then what everyone is convened here to talk about, which is legislation and how we will, through the United States Congress, make sure that all people's voices are heard and their issues and their needs met. So what I found myself recently saying is this: if it's worth fighting for, it's a fight worth having. I'm going to repeat that. If it's worth fighting for, it's a fight worth having. And I say that because I think sometimes there is a conversation that suggests that before we decide we're going to engage in a fight, some might say, well, let's sit back and consider the odds of winning. No. If it's worth fighting for, it's a fight worth having. Sometimes people will suggest, oh, before we make that decision, let's sit back and wonder, what are the cost benefits of engaging in that fight? Will I incur any harm? Will it be difficult? Will it require a lot of work? But what National Action Network knows is that's not how we measure what we fight for. That's right. Because we say if it is worth fighting for, it is a fight worth having. And so that's where we are today, outlining then what is worth fighting for. And I will mention then again, in looking at votes still being counted and knowing what is going on in many areas of our country, not only Georgia and Florida, look what happened in North Dakota, where our Native American brothers and sisters were basically excluded from their opportunity and their right to vote because of laws that were put in place to suppress their ability to have their voices represented. So what is worth fighting for? Voting rights. Well, we know in Shelby v. Holder that the United States Supreme Court gutted the Voting Rights Act, which members of this organization, including its leader and so many others, fought for. Many died for the Voting Rights Act to be passed. And it's been gutted by the court. So what needs to happen now as we convene here in the United States Congress? Congress needs to act. Congress needs to act, and we need to pass a voting rights amendment. And it's the Voting Rights Advancement Act, so we can restore the full protections of the Voting Rights Act. That is worth fighting for. And it is therefore a fight worth having. Let's look at what we're looking at in terms of elections on another level. Let's speak truth. In case everyone is not clear, Mark Warner and I sit on the Senate Intelligence Committee. He is the co-chairman of that committee. You read the public report. Russia interfered in the election of the presidency of the United States. That is a fact. That is a truth. It is worth fighting for integrity in our election system, which means that they are free from interference by a hostile or an unfriendly nation. So that is why we have a bill in the United States Senate supported by Senator Warner and actually a bipartisan support. And it's my bill together with James Lankford, the Election Security Act, which says let's put the resources into upgrading the state's elections systems. Because what we know is this, there are a lot of states that are dealing with antiquated machines, right, which are vulnerable to being hacked. And let me remind everybody, part of what we know is the evidence from what happened in 2016 is that the Russians figured out America's vulnerability. They detected, it didn't take long for them to figure out America's Achilles heel and attack on that basis. And what is America's Achilles heel? The issue of race. And it was on that basis and hate. And it was anti-Semitism, it was homophobia, it was a number of things. They attacked, knowing that was what would attract heat in our country and create dissension and discord. So the Elections Security Act is something that is worth fighting for. Let's look at the rule of law. That is worth fighting for. This morning I was in the Senate Judiciary Committee, as Reverend Al mentioned. And I will tell you, the nominees coming before that committee, including just this morning, a nominee, Senator Booker, was eloquent in saying that he and Senator Menendez did not get, Reverend Al, the name until just last week, when the Senate was not in session, had no opportunity to interview this nominee. They have not submitted their okay for this nominee, which is called a blue slip, but yet the hearing was pushed through. It is worth fighting for, making sure that the right nominees go before that committee and are confirmed. And the right nominees being just folks who are fully vetted and who we get to weigh in. Because remember, the Senate has the responsibility to advise and consent for these lifetime appointments. Remember that these individuals make decisions about how we interpret the Constitution of the United States, which directly impacts all of the issues that this organization fights for every day. That is a fight worth having, which is paying attention to and making sure that judicial nominations reflect the best interest of due process. What is worth fighting for? Economic justice in our country. So we've been talking a lot, and this organization, NAN, has been a leader on the need for reform of America's bail system, the money bail system. I actually have a bill together, and again, it's a bipartisan bill saying we need to reform the bail system in the United States. We understand that it is wrong from a context of what we need around criminal justice reform, but it is also an economic justice issue. Because what happens is that if you don't have the money to pay bail to get out pending trial, you sit in jail. That's why, guess who my co-sponsor of that bill is? Rand Paul, who said to me, I said, Rand, how your folks doing with co-sponsoring that bill with me? He said, actually, you know what, Kamala, they're doing fine. He said to me, literally, Appalachia loves this bill because they know, working people, poor people, whoever they are, know that this is a matter that is not only about criminal justice, it is about economic justice. That is worth fighting for. Let's look at economic justice in another context. I've also got a bill that we call the LIFT Act, which says that if a family is making less than $100,000 a year, they get a tax credit of up to $6,000. Why? Because many, many American families are a $500 emergency away from financial catastrophe. The leading cause of bankruptcy in our country is the inability to pay a hospital bill. That's worth fighting for, economic justice. Let's talk about another economic justice issue that is worth fighting for. Can you pay the rent? Now, you know, we've had great songs about that. That rent needs to get paid. Well, 99% of the counties in the United States, if you are a minimum wage worker working full-time, so in 99% of the counties in the United States, a minimum wage worker working full-time cannot afford market rate for a one-bedroom apartment. So what my bill proposes is that if you are paying over 30% of your income in rent plus utilities, you get a tax credit of up to $6,000. Because we know that that is one of the biggest issues facing working families, which is their ability to afford to pay that rent at the end of the month to keep a roof over their head so they can send the children to school so that they can go and work that job to live a life of dignity and to live a better life. Economic justice is worth fighting for. And my final point, I guess, is this. When we look at where we are as a country, we know that we have a lot of work to do. This is an inflection moment in the history of our country. This is a moment in time that is requiring us to ask this question, who are we? And what we know, National Action Network, is that part of the answer to that question is we are better than this. And in fighting for the best of who we are, we will do what is necessary in terms of the activism, what is necessary in terms of marching when we need to, doing what we need to do in terms of peaceful protest. And it is also about what we need to do in the court systems, and it will be about what we need to do in this Congress. And pushing for legislation that will reflect the values and the best interest of all of the people.
All right, well, we're going to dip out of this, guys, and come back into our newsroom. Tom Fitzgerald quickly visiting with us for just moments before we get a couple
quickly trying to figure out which microphone to grab.
Over here, because we just want to chat really briefly about Amazon coming to this area. This is the big story of the day, and we're going to have Steve and Allison chatting about this in just a moment. But Fitz, you're...
I have a degree in communications, by the way.
Going over to...
Which microphone is it?
Either one. Yeah, okay. Either one. Both are good.
Highlights of football phone.
So we'll do a quick teaser about what's going on today and what Fitz is covering, and then we'll have Steve and Allison chat with us a little more about this decision, but it's a huge story today. Amazon picking D.C. and New York. Surprise, surprise.
Well, not quite D.C. and New York.
Okay. Explain a little more.
No, not quite. Not D.C. and New York.
True.
What they've chosen is Long Island City, which, if you're not familiar with New York, Long Island City is actually a neighborhood in Queens, in the borough of Queens in New York City. Right. So even though it's called Long Island City, it's actually part of the borough of Queens. And then Crystal City, Virginia, which is in Northern Virginia, right across the river from D.C. Right. If you've ever flown into National Airport and you see those buildings right behind the airport, that's Crystal City. Mm-hmm. However, it's not going to be called Crystal City. They have a development there, which they're planning on with the JBH Smith Company, which they're going to rename that area. You ready?
Yeah, I know. They're renaming this
National Landing.
And they just have the power to do that.
Well, it's going to be the name of the complex.
Yeah.
Arlington, where Crystal City is located, has a lot of unincorporated towns. There's no mayor of Crystal City. It's just a part of Arlington County. Mm-hmm. So you have a lot of communities throughout Northern Virginia that have names but aren't actual local governments, police departments, mayors, councils, and things like that. They're all part of Arlington County. So they're going to rename this portion of it as National Landing. But I have a better name.
Yeah. And we were all wondering.
This has been because this has been trending on Twitter this morning about renaming Crystal City, and for years people have kind of made fun of the name Crystal City because if you go to the city, it doesn't really look like a crystal place.
Right. Yeah, it has sort of a different reputation now.
I think Amazonia, Virginia would be a much better name, which they're never going to do.
We were joking about that in the meeting too. We were like, "What could it be?"
Did they say Amazonia?
I think someone did mention that
because they saw my tweet and they stole it.
I don't know.
I tweeted that 3 hours ago. Somebody stole that.
I know you're running out to the official announcement, right? The official press conference about.
Well, the official announcement was this morning. At about 10 o'clock this morning. But here's what's at stake. Originally, Amazon was going to set up one second headquarters. Okay, so now what was being called HQ2
Right.
is really now HQ2.5, because they're splitting this second headquarters into two spots. So, you know, you're basically looking at the financial deals that they had in place for either Northern Virginia or Long Island City are now split in half.
Yeah.
So you're looking roughly about 25,000 employees coming to this new location in Crystal City, about 25,000 employees going to the new location in Long Island City in Queens. What this will also mean is a lot of the tax incentives will be halved as well. Right. So they're not going to get the whole package that was offered by each individual place.
Right.
Now, there's some losers in our area. Not everybody's a winner on this. Keep in mind, also on that final list of 20 was Montgomery County, Maryland. Specifically, the area of the White Flint development was being named, and also Washington, D.C. was on the list. Now, you might say, listen, you know, 6 of one, half a dozen of the other. What does it matter? They're all in the same region. Well, it matters to the Commonwealth of Virginia because this is a huge win today.
Right.
However, Governor Larry Hogan of Maryland, Republican, who lobbied very, very hard to win this today, came out with a statement today about this, congratulating Amazon on its decision. And Hogan makes the point, listen, this is going to fill up the bathtub and raise everybody's boats. Because the minute you get a company like Amazon coming into this region, it is going to have a benefit for traffic projects in this area. It's going to have an impact on mass transit projects in this area. More people are going to move into this area. Also, you're going to have a big investment as part of this in higher education in this area. One of the things Amazon said that it needed if it was going to land this Q2 any place was that location was going to have to make a big investment in higher education, and particularly that is what's going to happen in Northern Virginia. The Commonwealth of Maryland is going to make a big investment in Virginia Tech, specifically around the Alexandria campus and also up in Northern Virginia, because you need a skilled, higher educated workforce that's going to be working in this tech business. So if they don't have that, that was one of the things that kind of raised Northern Virginia over some of these other competing areas as well.
Yeah, interesting. No, it's definitely a big win for this area. I mean, there are pros and cons. We're going to talk about them a little bit more with Steve and Allison when they join us, because they're going to come over and chat, but I know you're going to go to that news conference, so get us the details.
What are they going to
chat
about?
More of what you're saying and sort of their kind of own thoughts from hearing the news this morning. Same stuff.
Well, the thing I would say is the rollout is not going to be right away.
Right.
Some of this has to be built.
Sure.
So it's not going to be something that happens quickly.
Overnight, right.
Some of the stuff's going to have to be voted on. Some of it won't be voted on until early 2019.
Yep.
Because of the fact it just got announced today. But all of this focus that we've had in the last couple of years on transportation in this area, especially roads, metro, things like that, that is all becomes critically important right now because of where they're locating this, especially in Crystal City, is basically at the juxtaposition of a major metropolitan airport, an interstate highway, and a metro station, and by the way, a VRE rail station as well too. So you've got all of this coming together in one area. It's going to be a critical component of why Amazon chose this area, and its proximity, of course, to Washington D.C.
Totally, really good insight here. I'm going to show you a cool video that our digital team put together just about this as it was breaking this morning.
A cool video.
Yeah, a cool digital kind of synopsis of what's happening and some of the numbers behind it. And Fitz is going to get us more information from that news conference later this afternoon. So
I'm not interested in numbers, so I'm going to go. Okay.
You're like, I'm over.
I'm bad at math.
And we'll grab Steve and Allison, who are coming up next.
Bye.
Yeah, we're going to get mic'd up. We're back in the newsroom here with Steve and Allison coming off the morning show. And let's squeeze Allison in a little more. But we just got those mics. Yeah, so we're talking to Amazon, obviously splitting their headquarters now between Arlington, Virginia and Long Island City, Queens, New York. A lot of pros and cons. I know we're all talking about it. If you guys have thoughts, let us know. But yeah, what are your guys' take this morning? We kind of expected it.
We don't have microphones. Help us.
Let me fix this. Here. Y'all, help.
I don't know how. I can't figure out the mechanics of that.
So Fitz was here. I know he did. Tom Fitzgerald going out to that news conference that's happening at 1:30. There he is. He's leaving
Crystal
now.
City
Finally,
is in the midst of a major.
So anyway, big news this morning. And so, what do y'all think?
Well, I just saw something interesting from the newly elected Congresswoman, the youngest woman
I saw this morning, this thread.
And so she was basically saying, how can these areas, she was talking about New York City, but how can these areas pay all this money, in incentives and all that, when they have infrastructure that needs help? And it was an interesting argument. Like, all I thought when I saw the news was,
Let's see if I have it.
all I thought when I saw the news was great for Crystal City, great for the DMV. The mayor of DC just put out a release that said she was like super excited about it. What's good for Northern Virginia is good for the region. But I really hadn't thought about that other part of it. I know there are downsides to all of whatever, but when we reported the story earlier, my overriding thought was good for Crystal City. And there are always growing pains. But that was just another point of view when I saw what she said. It's like, kind of right. Like,
right.
Kinda,
it's a long thread. It's
right.
a long thread about the hoping that it involves the community as workers and not just exports.
For sure.
So
I think that's for me. That would be the key. But I thought that's.
I
what
would
they said,
too.
No?
I mean, the first thing I thought of, to be honest with you, was just property prices and congestion,
Sure.
metro access. Now, Amazon has come out and said that they will help with some of the infrastructure, additional metro entrances, not stations, but space some entrances, perhaps a little bit closer to some of the other areas that are not serviced by the entrances right now. But the stations would still be the same. But my fear is, from that standpoint, is when you look at what happened this weekend when they shut down Metro to the airport, and people were waiting 2 hours just to go.
Sorry, Mr. Shinovi, your package is here from Amazon.
My Prime
is it really?
We
It's not even Amazon.
We can't accept any
We'll have to
packages.
send that one back.
Here you go. We can't accept this. All right.
In the event that there's a disruption to Metro service, it was a nightmare. People were missing their flights left and right because, you have more cars on the road just Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday. From the people who would normally take the train to the airport, suddenly everybody had to drive. And just that extra amount of cars on the road just messed everything up. So it has to be a system of planning for that as well. Now, I know that there were a lot of government jobs there before that moved out when they went down to down 395. And I know that Arlington leaders have said, well, they've been waiting to bring those jobs back, essentially, and they have a plan in place. So I think it does put a lot of pressure, though, on the local jurisdictions to make sure that the infrastructure grows along with the job growth, because you can't just add all these people and not do anything to make it easier to move around.
Think it would have been better in a more rural area?
There was some talk about, and initially one of the other finalists was closer to Dulles. They wanted to be closer to an airport.
That made more sense to me, to be honest, Dulles. Did it? I mean, I just thought it was going to be there, but that's just what I was predicting.
There's a lot of tech growth that's out that way anyway, and if you were going to build, I think, a campus from scratch, you have a lot more accessible real estate out there.
Right. Less worries about the infrastructure,
congestion.
Exactly.
But there's a lot
Still
to be
the
said
smart
to be
people.
as close to the nation's capital and the business and the hubbub of the city activity and all that is possible as well. And we don't know at this point if the new jobs are going to be legit new jobs or if they're going to be purging from consulting firms.
I'll let you know. I plan on applying.
Well, but that's the thing. I mean, look, you
know,
can say you want to hire 25,000 people and pay them six figures, but it's hard to find 25,000 qualified people in any metro area that can immediately walk in and be existing in the area to those jobs that they're looking for.
Do you think that will be a hard number to meet here? I wasn't sure about that.
I don't think it'll be a hard number to meet here, but I think it might be a challenge to meet if you're talking about people that are not already in the workforce.
Okay.
And that's the thing is like, who are you going to
newly out of
people from, or are you going to bring people from other parts of the country here to Washington to work? Which, in that case, then what are you really doing
for the area?
Yeah.
But I'm saying though, I mean, when you think about cutting edge, like what's next, it's got to be Amazon. They're everywhere.
Totally.
You know what I mean?
It's huge.
Amazon has become a verb. Do you know what I mean? Just whatever.
I'll Amazon it.
Yeah, right. Do you know what I mean? Like in the realm
Google.
of
Tech.
Kleenex and Xerox, and
right.
it's just what we do. That's the first thought.
Absolutely.
And so it's kind of like it's exciting, and I think there are growing pains. But if I had to say no to Amazon HQ2 in the DMV, or yes, like just as a person,
in general,
I would say hell yes.
Like good.
And I think Wisdom phrased it very well earlier when we were talking about it, and I think we've all. At least I know Wisdom and I have. You may have, if you worked in a smaller city and there's been that opportunity to bring something in and it wasn't awarded there or it was declined, it went somewhere else, and then you saw that business flourish in another city and you wish you would have had it. I think it's very hard to say no to it.
We know. We worked in upstate New York and in those areas in Pennsylvania where business is just, I forget where it was. I guess it was Binghamton where, was it IBM? One of those big companies used to be, and it was like a ghost town. Just the buildings just stayed there.
Oh, really?
Thing.
So I think you accept it and you look at the positives and you hope that you can keep up with the growth. And for people who already own property there, it's fantastic. Now for people who don't own property, you might want to get it now.
Skyrocketing.
Yeah, they were looking at the numbers and like evaluating the last 30 days to see who was buying up. I mean, people that can are, but people that can't,
Here's the advantage,
it's tricky
though,
for millennials.
For this area, and when you talk about things like that and some of the negatives that go along with these mega deals, if you were putting this in some of the other cities that were finalists like Pittsburgh, that have a very low cost of living right now, where you can still buy a house for a couple $100,000, then you would see a bigger increase than what you have here. This is already one of the most expensive places to live in the country. So, I mean, will prices go up? Probably, but I think closer to negligible than a huge noticeable increase.
And also interesting is that they're renaming the campus, or they're renaming an area, or possibly that's just their campus name.
I reached out to 3 different Amazon execs plus
Arlington
city leaders so far, and I have not gotten anything definitive back.
What do they call it? It's
National Landing?
National Landing. But that is the number one thing on Twitter when I reach out to Amazon. I said, look, I don't know if this is what you guys anticipated to be the talking point today, but the name is
it is.
Well, is that just where they
I think it's going to be their
it's their campus.
I think
that they want to use that as their address.
Okay.
Like one National Landing.
It's a nicer sounding address for people that don't know the area. There are people from outside.
Good point.
And it just kind of has that.
Crystal City does seem, and it's no shade because I love Crystal City. I love hanging. It's like a real cute little hangout area.
But it has.
But that name sounds like Lonnie Anderson.
Well, so the question then.
She's old timey. She's still alive.
So. It is.
Lonnie, if you're watching.
It doesn't have the best reputation now, to be honest. If you guys are in the area, you know, it doesn't have a very good reputation.
Like, because I remember, I don't even know if it's still operational, like Underground Mall in Crystal City.
It did,
right?
Yeah, I remember that.
It just seems,
I remember the pita place in there.
Right? Yeah, exactly. Like a Red Lobster or something.
But it didn't. But the knock against it was it didn't have a personality.
Right.
And there was big sports bars, corporate bars.
So I don't know as far if Arlington would ever go along with changing the name, but it sounds to me like that's just.
But if it's just for their campus, which I like it. I think that name is nice.
Yeah, it'll be cool. And interesting little inside info. I reached out to my best girlfriend Caroline, if you're watching, from college, and she works for Amazon in Chicago. She said they are going to raise the buildings and completely build anew.
Oh.
But that's just hearsay, so that's third party. But I wonder.
But I mean, I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, you have all that money, and there's.
They want to make it
competition
new.
among these tech companies with all the campuses that are being built across the country. They're just the biggest, the best, etc.
I just met an amazing review about this new series on Netflix called Dogs. It's a 6-part series, and it's supposed to warm your heart, and everybody's supposed to read it for Thanksgiving. So make sure you watch Dogs.
No, it's going to be sad.
Yeah,
no,
right.
It's happy.
No, it's not.
True stories
it's going to be
about
triumphant.
Dogs that help out people that need help.
Sad.
Dogs that hang out with fishermen.
Okay, sad.
Dogs that are rescued from
sad
and sent to forever homes.
Oh yeah, sad.
No.
Is there a chapter called Marley?
There's 6 episodes.
No, it's sad.
You guys need to see it.
Okay.
Thanks.
Okay, bye.
Have a good
Thanks, Tuck. Yeah.
He is so strange.
Looking for things to do.
And I won't watch that. Anyway,
But no,
Anyway.
it would not-
HQ2, like it or not, baby.
it would
Here it
not
comes.
I know they're going
at
to talk
all.
about it tonight for sure, like
Here it
unlike it or
comes.
not.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see. So pros and
Well,
cons.
1:30 is
More-
the official announcement. this afternoon.
Right. Well, I guess already announced, but just
Well,
more
the official
details.
Press conference, I guess.
Maybe they'll talk more about the buildings and
They'll talk more
structures,
about the name and everything else,
the,
right?
the money.
But that's the other thing. Now those buildings are right along Route 1, so if you knock down a couple big buildings, then in the meantime,
Construction.
there might be some issues there. Getting out
That's
there,
going to
so.
be a pain.
And the Today Show
And
was
in the
report-
meantime, change the name of the highway.
Oh, Jefferson Davis,
they will.
right? They
Change
probably
that.
will.
Yeah.
I could see that because there's been debate about that anyway.
Uh-huh.
Today Show reporting that the average salary is going to be 100,000. So that you guys were talking about
That's
that.
what I'm saying. But then the question is, are they going to truly hire local people, though, or are they going to bring people in from all
This
over
is
the
such
country?
like a smart.
My guess is
area.
it is going to be government,
Yeah.
stuff.
Yes.
It's going to be like Pentagon-y people talking about the
Right.
cloud, talking about security, right? It's what my thought is for DC. But
When do applications become open?
2019.
oh, is that
Really? You
right?
have to
I
wait
thought it was
until-
already.
Well,
So-
2019 is 2 months from now.
Right.
But I thought it wasn't. Okay.
But
I
they're
wonder
doing
what kind of
apparently-
jobs there
But
are.
apparently
Me
they're doing all the processing through their new facility in Nashville.
Oh.
So they're going to add 5,000 jobs to Nashville to also hire all of the 50,000 people for New York and DC.
That's right. It's like a warehouse, right?
So they have it's a new facility they're doing. there,
Facility.
so- but they're consolidating some of the other operations.
Okay.
So it's exciting.
I think it's very exciting.
Mm-hmm.
Growing pains for sure, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
They chose us, and I hate like
We
we
don't wanna
we
lose out on
waited
it,
right,
right.
and so it's here now, and you know, but you got to look at the cons as well. You do. And in the meantime, life just keeps rolling. The wildfires still burning.
They're still burning. We have a little bit of live video of that right now. Take a look. Yeah, still burning. Popping us in. Squeeze it out.
That's just insane. I just can't.
Yeah, look at that footage. Isn't that amazing?
Yeah, they were saying that there's some of the Santa Ana winds that are blowing through there are 70 to 85 miles an hour,
Oh
which
my
is just
gosh.
unbelievable up and down. So you can just see how quickly
my
it stuff spreads.
goodness.
Because I was thinking of,
Karen.
and I was asking Steve earlier, like, do you think there was an evacuation order? But then thinking of like the winds and how quickly it can shift and whatever.
It's so random, right? That it.
Horrifying. Yeah,
Mhm.
it really is. So I just, it's weird. It's hard, like with what we do. It's hard sometimes to be like, okay, well, have a good day. You know,
Right.
we're gonna go on because
know.
there's so much information that we hear and then have to report. And this is one of the tough ones. It's hard to just be like, okay, well, I have a problem because gas is too expensive and all the mundane things.
Totally.
When you can't find people that you love. You know,
Right.
It's really sad.
What was the thing this morning about Kim and Kanye? They hired like their own.
Right, and so that was, what was the feedback? Because at first when I heard it, I'm like, that's weird. Like, so you just hired it for
For
your
you?
thing. But then Kanye said that it was for the cul-de-sac. So there, now when you have a home that's that
I didn't
big,
actually know.
I didn't hear him say that it was specific to the cul-de-sac. I heard
I
him
thought
say
that he said it would
that-
help other homes
well,
because they were in
what
like a
he
dead
was-
end
what
type
he
of thing.
was, the way that I understood what he was saying was, all right,
Mm-hmm.
they have in the cul-de-sac, their house basically is the end of the cul-de-sac.
Yeah.
Okay, so they have the ginormous house at the end of the cul-de-sac.
Mm-hmm.
So his argument was, if they can protect their house
Right.
and stop the fire before it gets there, then that will stop the fire before it gets to the
other
other
houses,
homes
yes.
in the cul-de-sac.
And they said it did,
okay.
they said it worked.
Now,
That's
whether
interesting.
he really planned on saving the neighborhood
I know.
or that's
Right.
a
That's
nice
what- that's
effect
the
of
spin.
saving his house,
Yeah.
I don't
that's-
know.
That's only they know.
What
I
he
guess.
did.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, but there you go. Live aerials right now of what it looks like.
Oh, wow.
I know. I don't know if.
That's pretty amazing to see an entire mountain.
Look at the plane.
So that wouldn't be, would that have been a residential area?
I'm not even sure.
Like down in the valley?
Well, depending on which.
It says Thousand Oaks area for where this is.
That's going to be up in the hills above Thousand Oaks. Thousand Oaks.
Oh,
is
really?
More in the valley, but it's there definitely residential areas, pockets of them in there.
Mm-hmm.
The problem is that a lot of those, that fire that was burning there in Ventura County, just the way that it was blowing and the winds that were blowing it kind of toward the ocean. You basically have the mountains here and the water here, and then the houses in between. So as it was blowing down the side of the mountains, then it was going directly towards some of those homes.
Oh my gosh.
And the only thing that stops it, the fire at that point, is the sand.
Yeah.
Essentially, when it gets to the beach, because it's not going to burn through that.
Oh, wow.
But as long as there's fuel for it, which is all that greenery and all those trees, it's just been such a dry, it was such a wet spring out there, so they had so much greenery and so much growth in what's typically a desert area.
Right.
That now it's just all dried up, you know, timber and fuel for the fires.
That's amazing. You know a lot about California, Steve.
God bless the first responders.
All right, I want to talk about this story, guys. I think you reported on this morning.
Oh,
I know.
hate it.
Fox did a digital video on this. We're just going to play this out for you.
It just doesn't make any sense.
All right, so that was a video by our digital team at Fox News Network, and we talked about this. It's a high school in Wisconsin doing what is apparent to be the Nazi salute in this photo. And yeah, I didn't even catch the end of that video, but the Auschwitz Memorial Museum in Poland actually commented on it. And it's just another example of, you know, we're seeing this all over now.
I think that said something to the fact that there's a reason why they have to be like extra vigilant in and it just continues, like,
yeah,
because what looks like these kids might just be following suit and thinking it's funny or whatever has real meaning, and it's like it's disappointing and it's sad to see, and it's hurtful. You know what I mean? And you don't have to be a Jewish person to think that way. It's like, and then with the expressions, some of the kids said they didn't really know what it was, and I really do want to believe that, because you know, the smiles and the gleeful look, it just doesn't add up, you know, just doesn't really add up.
And then one or two that don't, you know, you
one
see
or
the
two
young
don't,
man in the upper right that is
are not doing it.
Not doing it.
Right.
Right.
So then you get the
So
feeling
but
that
he
they
probably
do know what it was, so that at that
Right.
point it's just like,
what do you,
you're
or
not
somebody
gonna-
needs to
you're
be
not gonna
like,
tell people what's
put your
going on
hands
here.
down.
It's weird, right.
The kids, because they should be like, no, this means this, and then, you know, or whatever it is. It's just, it's very disappointing.
Right.
Because they're young people, but I just gotta tell you that, like, even we had in my kids' high school, a letter just came home, you know, some kids putting hateful messages on social media and the same thing. So I think that it's just like this weird resurgence of this foolishness and stupidity and ignorance right now, and the way to stop it is like to see that and like completely put down that behavior. So I really do hope that, I think it's Baraboo.
Yeah, exactly.
I really do hope that they go after and talk to these young people and see what their intent was, but it doesn't look good.
Bring them here, take them to the Holocaust Museum.
Take them to the
Let them
Holocaust
see
Museum.
what,
That's right.
what
Let them
the
talk to
horrors are
survivors.
that
We
come to
still
these.
have, like, you know, Holocaust. Let them talk to somebody.
Yeah.
About what that symbol looks like.
One of the tweets featured in that digital video is actually by one of my old coworkers, Jules, when I worked for Discovery, and I dug a little deeper into that thread, and he said he was being reached out to by people from that area who are dealing with racial bullying and other things in that same school. So apparently there are other problems in that area, in that community, in that high school, so it's definitely doesn't seem to be isolated, but interesting, right? So.
Okay, that puts it into more context.
It doesn't make it any better.
No, absolutely not.
You know, just
but you want
as
to be like, oh, these are kids. They don't know what they're doing. But when you hear that it's not completely isolated,
not all of them knew, and that it was
right.
Like you see in most situations, a couple of people who were the antagonists.
Right.
Others are followers.
It'd be funny if it's not funny. It's not funny.
Right.
So Molly, what's that?
Yeah, I'm just hearing the Fox box go off about some sort of breaking situation, so we're going to check into what it is. It's going to be coming on here, so let's just take a second. Some sort of car crashing into a security building, and I'm not quite sure where, so we're going to take a look. I don't know. We're going to find out some more.
To a property.
Yeah, so whenever these come in, we try to stream obviously what's coming in live and talk to you about it. So you can just kind of stay in the know throughout our stream. We're on our website and on our YouTube channel right now. And Steve and Allison hanging out with me in the newsroom.
Yeah.
Thanks, guys.
Learning on how it works.
Yeah, exactly.
Learning about it.
I see on the side something station.
I want to say they said Jersey, but I'm going to look.
Donnie and Marie.
Let me find it. Yeah, I don't have the update yet, but when we know, we'll bring that to you. So apparently, I heard about 12 people are injured.
Oh, no.
So that's all we know right now.
I'm trying to read what that says.
Something station.
I am too. Something security, something station.
Oh my gosh.
Social security? No, I don't know.
Maybe administration.
Oh, Social Security Administration.
Security Administration.
I don't believe this is local to our area, but it's not what I was hearing, but I'm not quite sure. So we
That would
can,
make more sense as the office type building.
right, because it wouldn't look like it.
Somebody's saying that car into Social Security.
Oh, let me see. Yeah, there you go. Yep, Egg Harbor, New Jersey. Thanks for catching that, Al. Yeah, exactly. So obviously they need to take these things kind of seriously, but just lost it. So we'll see if that comes back up, but that's what it is here, guys. Just kind of jumping into it's live.
Yeah.
Kind of crazy.
Normally, it seems like when we report on that, it's a lot of like medical emergencies. If there's nothing, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Hi, Steve. How are you?
Rounding out your day. Thanks for joining me over here, guys.
We don't know what it is. I know.
You guys
I'm
are
just
exhausted.
That's okay. All right.
But
So
yeah.
what are you doing today?
So we're just going to kind of see what comes in live. We're going to look at the wildfires. We have this National Action Network conference going on in D.C., which we were showing you earlier. A lot of Democratic lawmakers speaking about civil rights movements.
So will you have the Amazon stuff live?
And so we will take the Amazon News Conference live at 1:30. Yeah.
Okay,
So
all right, let's come up
hopefully more details about the structure there and what the campus is going to look like. And Anjali is there. She's going to ask some questions. So
We'll get some answers.
yeah.
Sounds like a plan.
All right, guys.
All right, awesome.
Have a great day. Yeah. We'll catch you next time.
Good night. See you tomorrow morning.
Yeah. 6 a.m. guys.
Cancel as soon as you get sick. We shouldn't say to any family that you will have a lifetime ceiling on the benefits that you can receive for this insurance policy that you've been paying into for 35 years. We removed all of that with Obamacare, and we are going to keep it for all of Americans to benefit from. We aren't going to let them get rid of protection for people with pre-existing medical conditions. We are never going to sit back and let them do that. That's what this campaign was all about. The meanness. Being mean to people who are sick. Being mean to black women. Being mean to disabled reporters. Being mean to people who find themselves, how could you believe that somebody goes off and fight for this country, stationed abroad, send in their vote, they've got until the 16th to count the votes, and the President of the United States says we ought to ignore those votes and declare the election over. Meanness. That's what this campaign was all about. Getting rid of the meanness and restoring America's goodness. That's what this is all about.
Congressman James Clyburn. All right, Kyra, we're going to arrange to shuttle everybody over to lunch. Lunch is free. We're going to have lunch, go through what we've heard, and then make our visits. Kyra, tell us how do we do? Reverend Toon, okay.
Those of you that are going over to the luncheon, please follow. Those of you that's going to the luncheon, the address is 601 New Jersey Avenue. That's the AT&T Tech Justice Luncheon, 601 New Jersey Avenue. Those who are boarding the shuttle is leaving from Peace Circle. Peace Circle is about 4 blocks from here. I will be walking those who want to go over with us to the shuttle bus. Please meet me out in the lobby. We need to move expeditiously, get over to Peace Shuttle so we can get on the bus and head over to the luncheon. But those who want to go on their own, 601 New Jersey Avenue. Thank you.
All right, a live look right now at Lauderhill, Florida. This is where that election ballot controversy is still going on. They're still in the midst of counting everything there and making sure that everything is accurate. And we're kind of jumping in here to multiple live shots of this county as they go through this election recount. So more on that coming up, but take a look at some of our top stories from today from here and around the nation.
Another grim update from the Butte County Sheriff. The bodies of 13 additional victims have been recovered. And with the death toll now at 42, the Camp Fire has become the deadliest wildfire ever in California. A very sad milestone. At last report, more than 200 people were still listed as unaccounted for, and families are desperately looking for loved ones at evacuation centers, hospitals, and the coroner's office. In burned-out neighborhoods, search and recovery teams are combing through the ashes, looking for remains and any possible survivors. Cadaver dogs are also being brought in to help. Those who made it out Thursday morning are telling terrifying stories of flames surrounding their cars as they fled.
It's extremely heartbreaking, I think, for everybody, especially if the people suffering from not knowing, and that's probably the hardest place to be in.
Some 52,000 people remain evacuated, and now they're getting much-needed federal funding from Washington to help pay for temporary housing and cover uninsured property losses. President Trump declaring a major disaster, tweeting, quote, "Wanted to respond quickly in order to alleviate some of the incredible suffering going on. I am with you all the way. God bless all of the victims and families affected." Meantime, some 5,000 firefighters are working to gain the upper hand. The Camp Fire has grown to 117,000 acres and is now 30% contained. Thanks to favorable weather and calmer winds, crews made good progress on Monday. In Paradise, California, Claudia Cowan, Fox News.
Stanley Martin Lieber was born in 1922 to Romanian immigrants. He grew up in the Bronx during the Great Depression. Like many families, the Liebers struggled to make ends meet. Lee ended up in comics by accident. At 16, he took a job as an assistant at Timely Comics. Less than 3 years later, when two of his bosses left, he took over.
I looked around to see who'd replace them, and I realized there was nobody. I was the only guy there.
His first story was in Captain America's 3rd issue, and that's also when his own character first appeared. Lee served stateside in the Army during World War II. He was a playwright, creating cartoon training manuals for soldiers. He returned to Timely Comics afterwards, and in 1947 met and married a British hat model named Joan. In 1961, the company became Marvel. That same year, Lee came up with his first hit, The Fantastic Four, a concept he said he couldn't have done without his team.
Some people somewhere think that I wrote and drew. They think that the strips were just mine, but they would have been nothing if not for the artist.
What followed were some of the most recognized characters in pop culture: Spider-Man, the Hulk, Thor, X-Men, Iron Man, to name a few. Stan Lee never stepped down from Marvel.
I've never had more fun in my life. Why retire? And do what?
Comic book fan or not, pretty much everyone knows a Marvel character or two.
2008 National Medal of Arts to Stan Lee for his groundbreaking work as one of America's most prolific storytellers.
Stan Lee, a man who helped make comics a quintessential part of American history. Jonathan Hunt, Fox News.
It was an unambiguous, headline-grabbing rebuke.
Nationalism is a betrayal of patriotism by saying, our interests first, who cares about the others?
Criticizing President Trump's America First agenda and self-proclaimed nationalism, French President Emmanuel Macron used the anniversary of the end of World War I this weekend to warn a continent and indeed a globe awash in renewed nationalistic fervor.
As the very opposite of the selfishness of a nation which only looks after its own interests, because patriotism is the exact opposite of nationalism.
Mr. Trump insists his use of the word nationalist has its roots in patriotic love for country, but critics worry that his perspective has set off a rise of anti-globalism and even sparked a right-wing movement said to be sweeping across Europe. from the UK, Germany, and Italy to Hungary, Turkey, and Poland, where this weekend's massive Independence Day celebration, while overwhelmingly peaceful, highlighted Poland's deep political divisions, about which California Democrat Adam Schiff tweeted that it's not only that nationalism is on the rise around the globe, but also its pernicious twin, authoritarianism. From Poland to Hungary, Brazil to the Philippines, liberal democracy is being challenged everywhere, and America must rise to its defense. Freedom, say White House officials, is the president's message, a freedom ensured in part by the U.S.'s commitment to Europe's defense through NATO, where currently the U.S. accounts for over 22% of the alliance's common budget. An arrangement, said Mr. Trump on Twitter, that needs to be re-evaluated, writing, "It is time that these very rich countries either pay the United States for its great military protection or protect themselves."
We want to help Europe, but it has to be fair. Right now, the burden sharing has been largely on the United States, as the president will say, and he understands that. And he understands that the United States can only do so much in fairness to the United States.
French President Macron also suggested that maybe it's time for the EU to develop its own army to defend itself against Russia, China, and the United States. Hardly, say White House officials, the kind of thanks you would expect after decades of service protecting the French people and trillions of dollars doing so. At the White House, I'm Kevin Cork, Fox News.
At the insistence of the Holy See, we will not be voting on the two action items.
An abrupt change of plans at the Catholic Bishops' biannual meeting in Baltimore. The Vatican, at the last minute, inserted its own authority as the bishops look to take decisive action on the sexual abuse crisis.
They're having some hope that we seem to be moving in the right direction to say all of a sudden, okay, you can do everything but actually end up with an action item at the end is frustrating for us.
The two crucial measures, one, a new code of conduct for bishops, and the other, a civilian-led investigative body to look at high-ranking clergy who cover up abuse or are abusers themselves, the delay angering victims and the message it sends.
What they are telling Catholics and the American public is basically, we care more about our organization and our princely titles and positions than we care about children.
Since the bishops' last meeting in the spring, they've witnessed the fall from grace of Cardinal Theodore McCarrick, forced to resign and withdraw from ministry after a long history of abuse. Then came the bombshell Pennsylvania grand jury report uncovering 300 abusive priests and more than 1,000 victims. Since then, at least 12 states have opened their own investigations. Catholic experts say this is the biggest crisis for the Roman Catholic Church since the Protestant Reformation. But it's the human toll that has become a constant and ever-present reality.
Abuse of a child is the closest that you can get to murder and still possibly have a breathing body before you.
The Vatican didn't give a specific reason for directing American bishops to stand down on any decisive vote. One expert speculated that because the abuse crisis is a global problem, the Vatican wants to set global standards when Pope Francis meets with them in February. In Baltimore, Lauren Green, Fox News.
Yesterday, officials discovered 18 more bodies in California's Camp Fire as the search for people who have been reported missing continues. The Camp Fire, now the deadliest and most destructive in California history. Thousands of firefighters are working the front lines, trying to slow the spread of flames.
It's just absolutely heartbreaking to drive through Paradise and see the level of destruction.
The town of 27,000 virtually erased from existence. Dozens unable to escape, their bodies found inside and next to their cars and in the smoldering ruins of their homes. Search and rescue teams are sifting through the debris, expecting the death toll to spike, while family members anxiously await news about loved ones.
My husband's aunt lives in Magalia. Her name is Carolyn Krause. We couldn't find any information about her, whether she's safe or not, or where she might be.
Meanwhile, in the southern part of the state, the Woolsey Fire is burning a path from Los Angeles and Ventura counties through the Santa Monica Mountains to the Malibu coast. More than 400 structures have been destroyed and tens of thousands remain threatened.
It's beyond words. I mean, there's no way to explain it.
I mean, it looks like a nuclear blast went off here.
Crews aren't getting any help from the Santa Ana winds, which are expected to gust through Tuesday. The cause of the fire remains under investigation. President Trump has declared a disaster declaration. Those federal funds will be used to help aid the state's recovery. In Ventura County, Ray Bogan, Fox News.
The Arizona Senate race has been called, and it's another pickup for Democrats, but 2 races in Florida remain in question, just as Congress returns to work today. The drama under the dome. With a new Congress on the way, who are the new faces coming to Washington? We have at least one answer this morning. Democrat Kyrsten Sinema was declared the winner of an Arizona Senate race that had been neck and neck. Her opponent, Republican Martha McSally, publicly conceded from her couch.
Hey everybody, I just called Kyrsten Sinema and congratulated her on becoming Arizona's first female senator after a hard-fought battle.
But McSally may yet make it to the Senate, and soon at that. Arizona's other Senate seat that had been held by John McCain is being temporarily filled by John Kyle. He may step aside in January, and if that happens, Arizona's Republican governor could very well appoint Martha McSally to replace Kyle. Florida, on the other hand, continues to be a problem, with a major recount set to begin this morning in Broward County. 2 big races are still too close to call, for governor and for U.S. Senate, where Republican Rick Scott has a small lead over Democratic Senator Bill Nelson. But Scott isn't waiting for his race to be called. He said last night he is heading to Capitol Hill.
I'm going up there tomorrow, and I'll be part of the elections for leadership. So I look forward to starting the process of opening up an office and getting started as a U.S. Senator.
Well, those leadership elections are scheduled for Wednesday. The first recount deadline in Florida is Thursday, and those races may not even be decided at that point. In Washington, Doug Luzader, Fox News.
The Democrats would like to talk about yet another attorney general recusing himself.
Today, Republicans pushed back after Democrats formally asked the Justice Department's ethics office whether they have advised acting Attorney General Matt Whitaker to recuse from supervision of the special counsel investigation. Democrats who soon take control of key House committees allege Whitaker's past media appearances smack of anti-Mueller bias.
He should recuse himself because he has expressed total hostility. He's to the investigation. He has said the investigation shouldn't go forward.
But Counselor to the President, Kellyanne Conway, insisted Whitaker's past comments are old news.
If you're talking about Matt Whitaker's statements as a private citizen a year and a half ago, when the Mueller investigation first started, what he has said on cable TV, I don't think that disqualifies somebody from being the chief law enforcement officer at the Department of Justice.
The Republican chairman of the House Intelligence Committee, whose investigators exposed the DNC Clinton campaign-funded Trump dossier and alleged surveillance of the Trump campaign, hands the gavel to ranking Democrat Adam Schiff.
We are going to find out whether he made commitments to the president about the probe, whether he is serving as a back channel to the president or his lawyers about the probe, whether he's doing anything to interfere with the probe.
Whitaker now oversees the special counsel probe, replacing Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein. House Republicans allege Rosenstein's conflicts included signing the final surveillance warrant for Trump campaign aide Carter Page, to being a potential witness in an obstruction case against the president for firing FBI Director Comey.
Rod Rosenstein has an actual conflict because by definition he's a witness, and to oversee an investigation and be a fact witness is always inappropriate, but this isn't new to have a double standard.
On the ethics questions, a Justice Department spokesperson said Whitaker is fully committed to consulting with officials on his oversight role in matters that may warrant recusal. On the legitimacy of his appointment, a DOJ official said Whitaker is eligible under the Federal Vacancies Reform Act. In Washington, Catherine Herridge, Fox News.
Don't forget to show up.
Hey man, how can I forget? How can I forget? Thank you, young man.
Not all superheroes wear capes.
I feed the homeless and I make them smile.
But this one does.
Every superhero needs a cape.
One listen to that laugh. And one look at his superpowers. It's easy to see 4-year-old Austin is focused on his mission.
Don't forget to show up.
The young hero from Alabama is handing out free meals all across the country. country. On his 10-city tour, Portland is stop number 8. It's all part of his campaign called Show Love.
It means you care about someone no matter what they look like.
Now, with burgers in hand, he's bringing his powerful forces to this inpatient treatment center.
Let me shake your head. You rock, brother.
Well, he brought burgers, and then I talked to him, and he, he's doing his little Superman thing. We have random acts of violence, so it's good to have a random act of kindness and love coming here, showing love at VOA.
After dishing out 160 meals,
that was quick!
This hero will keep spreading that amazing energy and compassion.
We're going to order some more.
And of course, his love.
God works in mysterious ways. Big blessings in a small package.
It's just the right thing to do, and everyone needs love.
Violence flares between Israel and Gaza. Palestinian militants firing dozens of rockets and mortar shells into southern Israel Monday. It appears to be an act of revenge after a covert Israeli military raid in the Gaza Strip on Sunday. The raid leaving at least 7 Palestinian militants, including a local Hamas leader and an Israeli officer, dead.
The one who is responsible for the results of this ugly aggression and the terrible crime is the Israeli entity who targeted the Gaza Strip and the Palestinian resistance, while there are lots of efforts to bring about a ceasefire. So it has to pay the price for this foolish and terrible crime.
The Israeli military responding to Monday's attacks, dispatching fighter jets to strike terror targets throughout the Gaza Strip. Cross-border fighting comes just as Israel and Hamas reached an indirect deal, backed by Qatar and Egypt, to allow cash and fuel into Gaza. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu cutting short a trip to Paris to return to Israel, after defending the payments, saying he was trying to avoid an unnecessary war.
I do what I can, coordinating with the security forces to restore the calm to the southern communities. It's a process, but also to prevent a humanitarian crisis. I think that at this moment, this is the right step.
It remains to be seen if this violence will undermine efforts to bring calm to the region that have developed over recent days. In the city of Sderot, along the Israel-Gaza border, Trey Yingst, Fox News.
A suburban Detroit school presented a second grader, Nate, with a special citizenship award. When he got to the stage, his mom, Hope, who had been deployed with the Air Force, delivered the prize.
I missed you so much, Bob. His birthday was yesterday. He turned 8 years old, and he thinks Mom just missed his birthday. Again. What are we doing tomorrow, bud?
Celebrating my birthday.
We're having your birthday.
During a Veterans Day assembly at a suburban Chicago school, 6-year-old Colton was shocked when his dad, first-class petty officer William Mays, was announced as a special guest. Tears of joy as father and son reunite for the first time in 7 months.
He's grown up so much. He's not even the same kid I left.
And 2 Indiana moms surprised their kids at school. Army Sergeant Brittany Bullock unexpectedly showed up at her 3 daughters' school after 11 months away.
How'd you come?
I flew on a plane.
You flew in the plane for us?
I did.
And Army Specialist Amanda Story surprising her oldest daughter, who was raising the flag, then went to another school to reunite with her younger children. There'll be lots more hugs and joy as these families spend the coming days together. In Washington, Lauren Blanchard, Fox News.
About 11:30 p.m., we got a phone call from a person passing by. It said there was a loose elephant in the roadway.
At the risk of stating the obvious, the elephant in the roadway call, to which New York State Police Sergeant Dave Scott responded Sunday, represented the first call of that variety he'd answered in his 22-year career.
We get a lot of phone calls for horses in the roadway, cattle, various animals.
But when patrolling this area in and around Westtown, New York, 70-ish miles northwest of New York City, and not some tract of Thai jungle, a loose Asian elephant sighting falls outside the realm of normal.
I responded, and there was definitely an elephant in the roadway.
My grandmother had gotten Fritha back in the 70s.
Fritha is the 40-something-year-old Asian elephant Sergeant Scott met on the streets of Westtown Sunday night. And Amanda Brooke is Fritha's 3rd-generation keeper.
Fritha came to us when she was 200 pounds, 30 inches tall,
and had severe napalm burns over her back and her face and scarring.
Hit with napalm and orphaned as a calf during the Vietnam War, Fritha immigrated to the United States to this 275-acre sanctuary for animals, which rents out 10% of its menagerie for movies and commercials to support this reserve of neglected, abused, and abandoned animals.
We have everything from camels to cockroaches and an elephant.
After Fritha's dinner Sunday, one of her keepers forgot to turn on the electric fence, which produces a noise Fritha never forgets.
Elephants are extremely smart. She knew that the clicking noise was off.
So Fritha took a stroll, snagged a bale of hay from the sanctuary's $5,000 bi-weekly delivery, and moseyed across the road to her outdoor pen to enjoy her midnight snack.
I'm familiar with the elephant. I'm familiar with the area. Been here a long time.
Sergeant Scott called Brooke.
The police blocked the road for us.
And Brooke led Fritha home. No persons or animals injured, no property destroyed, and a career first for a veteran of the New York State Police.
I actually expected this. I figured in the last 22 years that I've been here, I figured that it would happen at some point, and it did.
All right, cute story, not something you see every day in New York State. New York State Police dealing with that animal, that elephant, getting lost there on the streets. Hey, we're heading over to Virginia, though, in the next half hour, and take a look at this. The stage is already set for this press conference, this official news conference starting hopefully within the half hour or so. You can see on the podium, it already is set there, and you can't quite see through the people right here, but earlier I saw the shot, and it says Virginia is for Amazon lovers. So they're getting ready already with the state slogan there, throwing in the word Amazon, and this looks like a pretty official deal right here. You can see the podium shot, lots of people already gathering, media. They already have specific rules on where to be and where to park and stand in this area. This is in Arlington, just happening live right now. So we have our cameras there, and we're going to bring this to you when it comes in the next half hour. For now, though, we'll talk about some other top stories here. We'll show you some more aerials of the wildfires continuing on in the Thousand Oaks area of California. Take a look. We showed you these earlier, and these are just ongoing kind of live camera shots here of this fire raging on in California. So take a look there, and we'll be back with some more breaking news as it happens. And of course, that all highly anticipated press conference with Amazon coming to Virginia.
Skyfox? I'm hearing mixed minus. Are we on the air right now? Okay, I lost IFB. I'm hearing a huge echo in my ear, and that happened during my last report. I cannot hear air right now. No, let's work on it too, Haley. Let's try to get someone to work on it. Thank you. southwest covered, and I'm looking off to the east, and I see the charred hillside. We're talking about 20 miles from west to east, from this point, the far southwest flank, southwest of Lake Sherwood, all the way over across towards Calabasas, and then nearly 15 miles of real estate covered from the south end of Simi Valley all the way to the Malibu shore. That is how much area this fire zone encompasses. And again, only 65% of it, or I should say only 35% of it is contained or circled. 65% of it they still need to work on. And this is part of that 65% area. A lot of fuel, terrain, weather, wind being the most critical factor in the wind. As you can see with the smoke, we watch how that smoke moves in a west to southwesterly direction, blowing coming from those winds that are blowing out of the east to northeast. When we give a wind direction, an east to northeasterly wind, that means the direction those winds are blowing. You put your face towards the east northeast and you'll feel those winds on your face, that they'll be blowing to your back towards the west southwest. And that's what's happening here. That means the fire is burning, for the most part, away from the Lake Sherwood area, away from Newberry Park, high up on the ridgetop of the Santa Monica Mountains. And when I say high, this is the highest point nearby here, Sandstone Peak at 3,111 feet, towards Point Mugu State Park, towards the Springs Fire burn area. But still a lot of active flames. We have a lot of chaparral, the manzanite, all that other vegetation that's natural to Southern California, not the palm trees, not the eucalyptus trees. Those all have been imported and planted by landscapers. But this area has not burned for some time, and it's burning hot and fast, creating its own weather environment as well. Nearby, that hot air rises rapidly. That causes that surrounding air to pull in, to be pulled in, to essentially replace that rising air. Hot air over the snow, you know it, that hot air rises and replaces, and the air that rises, our atmosphere wants to be in balance, so it pulls in air, and that increases the wind velocity and changes the wind direction. So you have the primary component offshore, east to northeast, but you can get winds in all directions, and at times you even see those mini tornadoes, those fire-nados that spin up. That's a good indication of what type of conditions are like there down at the surface. And all that information is being told to firefighters by an incident meteorologist out of Oxnard, out of the National Weather Service up there. They watch these conditions. They brief the first responders daily. And when we talk about first responders, again, a mutual aid situation, firefighters descending from all over Southern California, in fact, all over the state and even across state lines to help with this tragedy, this major emergency, this historic fire here in Southern California that has burned hundreds of structures, and that count will likely continue to increase. At this time, we're not seeing any structures an immediate threat. Crews are down there, not just firefighters, but law enforcement as well. I know from my beach city communities, Redondo, Hermosa, Manhattan Beach, they're sending police officers up here to help out as well. We'll continue to watch it from up here in Skyfox, another report coming from Virginia on the ground. Oh, yeah.
this on? Good afternoon. I need everybody to take their seats. I need everybody to take their seats. Need everybody to take their seats. Thank you. I've got prepared remarks, but I think the first thing I want to say is, wow, this is a wonderful day, so let's give everybody a round of applause. I want to welcome everyone and thank you for coming out today on such very short notice. My name is Brian Ball, and I serve as the Secretary of Commerce and Trade for Governor Ralph Northam. This is a great day for all of us in the Commonwealth of Virginia. It's also a great day for all of our neighbors in Washington, D.C. and Maryland. Before I introduce our featured speaker, I'd like to do two things, if I may. First, I'd like to thank Stephen Murray and his staff at the Virginia Economic Development Partnership for getting us here today. And I'd like to say further in that regard, this wouldn't have happened without you, Stephen Murray. And I'd like to also thank Heather Murray for letting Stephen do all of this. Stephen wouldn't have happened if it hadn't been for Heather, and so we very much appreciate her support. I'd like to also thank all of the elected officials here today. We've got officials from Arlington and Alexandria and Fairfax, Loudoun, and we have quite a few members of our General Assembly who are here, and I would like to thank particularly the members of our MEI Commission who are also here with us today and have worked very hard on this project. Secondly, following the remarks from our governor, we're going to hear from a number of individuals who have also been instrumental in bringing us here today. Following the governor, you'll hear from Brian Huseman, who's Vice President for Public Policy at Amazon. Katie Crystal, Chair of the Arlington County Board of Supervisors. Allison Silverberg, who's Mayor of the City of Alexandria. Senator Frank Ruff, who's Chair of the General Assembly's MEI Commission. Delegate Matthew James, who's a member of the General Assembly's MEI Commission. And Matt Kelly, who's the CEO of JBG Smith. It's now my honor to introduce our next speaker. I've had the privilege of working for Governor Northam since February, and I can tell you the governor is 100% committed to ensuring that there is robust economic growth in all corners of the Commonwealth of Virginia. This is something that we work on every single day. Just as important, and you can't do economic development without workforce development, is his commitment to workforce development and workforce retention. We work significantly, we spend a significant amount of time working with employers, our communities, our colleges and universities to train the workforce of the future. Our governor knows better than anyone else that these things, along with vibrant communities, which you're going to see coming out of the ground right here in this spot, trust me on that, are keys to our economic success. So now please join me in welcoming the 73rd Governor of the Commonwealth of Virginia, Ralph S. Northam.
Please be seated. Well, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Brian, for that kind introduction. I am glad that all of you could join us today to share this most exciting news. I'd also like to thank you to the former governors, Governor McCullough, Mark Warner, for being here today. I want to recognize Lieutenant Governor Justin Fairfax and our Attorney General Mark Herring and all the other elected officials here with us today. Thank you all for your service. It is an honor to be with all of you today to make an historic economic development announcement for the Commonwealth of Virginia. Earlier this year, Amazon announced that after receiving nearly 240 applications, Northern Virginia was selected as one of 20 locations the company was considering for a second headquarters. We believe that Virginia has a tremendous amount to offer Amazon. We have a robust workforce that includes one of the strongest pools of tech talent in the nation. We have a premier higher education system that is recognized around the globe. We have a stable and competitive business climate. We are consistently ranked one of the best states for governance due to our fiscal stability and transparency. And we are a leader in innovation across every corner of the Commonwealth. We're testing disruptive space technology at Wallops Flight Facility on the Eastern Shore and doing life-saving cancer research in Richmond, Charlottesville, and Roanoke. We are creating agriculture biotechnology tools in the Shenandoah Valley and Southside Virginia. And we are performing cutting-edge research on unmanned systems and autonomous vehicles in Southwest Virginia. We are dedicated to being on the leading edge of the next technology and innovation breakthrough. That's why I'm proud to announce today that Amazon has found its next home for innovation right here in our Commonwealth of Virginia. Amazon will invest approximately $2.5 billion to establish a major new headquarters here and plans to create at least 25,000 new jobs. The new headquarters will be at National Landing, which includes portions of Pentagon City and Crystal City in Arlington and Potomac Yard in Alexandria. In fact, the site where we're standing right now will transform from an empty warehouse into a significant component of Amazon's new headquarters. Virginia's success on this project resulted in part from an unprecedented state, regional, and local partnership. I would like to thank Stephen Murray and his staff at the Virginia Economic Development Partnership, Brian Ball and the Commerce and Trade staff, Secretary of Finance Aubrey Lane, Secretary of Transportation Shannon Valentine, Secretary of Education Adif Carney, and my Chief Workforce Advisor Dr. Megan Healy. I want to thank also the members of the General Assembly who serve on the Major Employment and Incentive Commission, and their staff who work diligently with us throughout this process, and the representatives from Arlington County and the City of Alexandria who were instrumental partners on this project. I also want to thank Maryland Governor Larry Hogan and Washington, D.C. Mayor Muriel Bowser. We knew that if one of us won this project, we'd all win, and we enjoy a productive partnership with the greater region. I believe that Virginia's proposal to Amazon represents a new model of economic development for the 21st century. The vast majority of the Commonwealth's proposal is investments in our people and our infrastructure that will align with Amazon's long-term goals while supporting the growth and competitiveness of businesses all across Virginia. Like many other companies, Amazon grows its core businesses by attracting, developing, and retaining world-class talent. We made this a focal point of the Commonwealth's investment and have crafted a comprehensive strategy to dramatically expand our tech talent pool. In fact, the majority of our proposal includes investments to double Virginia's tech talent pipeline, with the goal of achieving 25,000 to 35,000 new graduates in computer science and related fields within 2 decades. Building the tech talent pipeline starts with a public K-12 system that includes an integrated STEM and computer science curriculum for every student. Virginia led the nation by adopting computer science standards across the K-12 continuum. As part of this project, we will invest an additional $25 million over 2 decades to provide ongoing professional development to teachers, develop new curriculum and resources, support summer and after-school programming, and implement work-based learning opportunities for students. We will also invest $25 million over 2 decades to expand internship opportunities for college students studying computer science and related fields. To expand our higher education programs, Virginia will establish a tech talent investment fund through which both our community colleges and our universities will have access to funding for faculty recruitment, capital investment, and enrollment support to expand their technology-related bachelor's degree programs. Thank you. These undergraduate programs in computer science, computer engineering, and other closely related fields will be located at institutions across the Commonwealth and will serve to strengthen the tech talent market in Virginia. We will also invest in new master's degree programs at 2 institutions, Virginia Tech and George Mason University. Virginia Tech will establish an innovation campus in Alexandria, just a couple miles from Amazon's new headquarters. This campus will support graduate education, attract top faculty, spark research and discovery, and strengthen the state's innovation economy. Within a few years, the campus will boost 750 master's degrees annually, while engaging hundreds of PhD students and postdoctoral fellows in cutting-edge research. George Mason University will launch a new Institute for Digital Innovation to drive research advances into new digital products and services. This will be located at Mason's Arlington campus. The new institute will house private sector entities along with Mason's thriving research and graduate education programs in computing. Roughly half of the employment at Amazon's new Northern Virginia headquarters is expected to be technology jobs, including software development engineering, artificial intelligence, and machine learning, user interface design, and user experience design. Virginia's enhanced focus on preparing our students for the jobs and the skills of the future directly aligns with Amazon's needs and creates a pathway for success for our students. In addition to higher education investments, Virginia's proposal to Amazon recognizes the need to minimize impacts on the region and includes investments in infrastructure that will improve mobility. The Commonwealth plans to invest $295 million of non-general fund money in transportation projects that will benefit the national landing site while strengthening the regional transportation system. Arlington County and the City of Alexandria are planning to invest in transportation projects to benefit the region. In addition, the Virginia Housing Development Authority, Arlington County, the City of Alexandria, and a number of other private and local partners are planning significant investments in affordable and workforce housing. I am committed to ensuring that all Virginians experience economic growth, and this includes access to quality, affordable housing. While Virginia's proposal to Amazon primarily focused on new investments in public assets that would benefit companies and citizens across the Commonwealth, it also included a performance-based incentive offering to be made only after the company has produced new qualifying jobs. This incentive offering includes up to $550 million if Amazon creates 25,000 jobs and up to $200 million in additional incentives if it creates a total of 37,850 jobs. Scientists have to be exact. Because these incentive payments will be provided only after qualifying jobs are created each year, the incentives will generate net positive revenue for Virginia from day one and will produce a more than 6-to-1 return on incentives over the term of our performance agreement with Amazon. I can proudly say that Virginia's proposal represents good fiscal stewardship. Amazon is already a tremendous partner to the Commonwealth of Virginia. With over 8,500 full-time employees and $29 billion already invested in the Commonwealth, the company's statewide footprint is significant. Amazon's new investment in Virginia is going to pay dividends for the entire Commonwealth. My priority as governor is to make sure every region of Virginia grows through better job opportunities and a robust economy that provides opportunities to live, work, and raise your family in the same place you grew up. I'm so proud of the work we've done so far, including announcing more than $1 billion in new investment in rural Virginia. But we've got more work to do. This project will enable Virginia to provide needed investments in education and infrastructure that will help individuals and businesses across every corner of the Commonwealth. The announcement today to embark on this new and significant partnership with Amazon will only build upon our legacy of collaboration with the company. Innovation is the lifeblood of our Commonwealth, and it is the driving force of Amazon's work. Together, we will think big, create a world-class model for public-private partnership, and test and implement the technological solutions that will drive Amazon, our communities, and the Commonwealth forward. And now, I would like to welcome Brian Huseman, the Vice President of Public Policy from Amazon, to the stage to deliver remarks. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Governor. This is a great day. My name is Brian Huseman. I'm Amazon's Vice President of Public Policy. And on behalf of the entire company, and also speaking as a DC Metro area resident myself, we are excited to be here today to announce that Virginia will be home to one of Amazon's new headquarters and 25,000 new high-paying jobs. And as the governor mentioned, this is in addition to the more than 8,500 employees we already have in Virginia and the more than 2,000 employees in our DC Metro offices. We will start hiring in our new national landing location next year. I'd very much like to thank Governor Northam, Arlington County Board Chair Crystal, the General Assembly leaders in both parties, and members of the MEI Commission. Your leadership and partnership were instrumental in this process. Thank you. We also very much appreciate the support of the members of the federal delegation for the entire Commonwealth, many who are here with us today. After more than a year of careful consideration, we decided that together Amazon and Virginia could achieve our goals of establishing a new headquarters with strong tech talent and a stable business-friendly environment. And this new headquarters will serve our Amazon customers well into the future. But it's not just a win for Northern Virginia. Indeed, the entire Commonwealth and the communities in DC and Maryland will also feel the positive economic impact of these 25,000 new jobs. So in addition to Governor Northam, we'd also like to thank Governor Hogan and Mayor Bowser for working together as one region on this important project. You might ask, why National Landing? Well, it has a lot to offer. It has some of the best transit access with 3 metro stations, commuter rail access, and Reagan National Airport, all within walking distance. And the community has a variety of hotels and restaurants and high-rise apartment buildings, retail and commercial offices. It has abundant parks and open spaces with sports and cultural events for residents of all ages throughout the year. In this location, Amazon will be able to attract the top-tier talent that will help us innovate on behalf of our customers. And we're looking forward to investing in this national landing community. Amazon will invest approximately $2.5 billion over the coming years. We're going to offer residents high-paying jobs. And in addition to our direct hiring and investment, the construction and ongoing operation of this headquarters will create tens of thousands of additional jobs and tens of billions of dollars in additional investment in the surrounding community. And we believe this project will generate revenue for the entire Commonwealth. The community and Amazon employees will also benefit from the Commonwealth investing more than $200 million in infrastructure in the neighborhood, including metro improvements, new access to Reagan National Airport, and a better Route 1 experience. Amazon is thrilled about this partnership and what it means for the company and the people of Virginia. We thank you for welcoming us into your community, and we look forward to becoming an even bigger part of it. At Amazon, it's always day one, and we're excited to begin this day one with you today. Thank you. Now I'd like to introduce Katie Crystal, Chair of the Arlington County Board of Supervisors.
Good afternoon. On behalf of my colleagues on the Arlington County Board, welcome to Arlington County. We are glad to be here today, and we are honored that Amazon has recognized Arlington's talent pool, our business climate, and of course, our proximity to the nation's capital in its search. We're confident that this announcement not only aligns with our existing plans and serves Amazon's needs, but will also benefit our Arlington community. Throughout this long process, the discussions with Amazon and with our state partners and the development of a package of local investments, we in Arlington have sought to ensure that our investments will build upon this community's existing goals and our values. Our goal with Amazon's major new headquarters is to welcome a company that will diversify our economy and spur innovation. Well, it's like applause. We're also helping realize the long-term land use and transportation plans that we've developed over decades, plans that will benefit current residents and workers, as well as those who will come into the future. And as the public reviews our local package for Amazon, we believe that our community will recognize the components of the plans they help shape: our 10-year capital improvement plan for transportation, our affordable housing master plan, our forward-looking community energy plan, and the Crystal City sector plan. Amazon's presence in Arlington County will bring improved transportation systems, new parks, wider sidewalks, expansion of retail offerings, all things that Arlingtonians have long prioritized in their vision for the future. We'll see green spaces at Penn Place, at Met Park. We'll see a realization of Metro Market Square and significant improvements in the transportation network that connect this community to Alexandria and to Columbia Pike. New buildings will meet sustainable green building principles and sustainable design principles consistent with the ambitious goals of our community's energy plan. And after a final vote on this agreement in February 2019, Arlington County will go through all of our planning and public engagement processes as usual for land use, as we consider any development decisions connected with this headquarters project. My colleagues and I believe that one of the things that drew Amazon to Arlington is our vibrant, engaged community. And so we are more committed than ever to the planning processes that have empowered that community to make Arlington livable and sustainable. This decision also represents a major step forward for Arlington's local economy. As our residents know, we face difficult budget decisions in recent years and in the fiscal year ahead, including reductions to important programs because of our high rates of vacancy in the commercial office market. Amazon's decision to establish a major new headquarters in Arlington will help address this critical structural challenge by creating a much-needed long-term revenue source for our growing community. The company's investment here will provide financial resources that help ensure Arlington continues to lead the nation in the quality of our schools, transportation, parks, and public safety. We welcome today's announcement from our partners at Amazon and from the state, and we look forward to building a long, productive, and mutually beneficial relationship with this newest corporate member of our community. Throughout this process, we have delighted to been working hand in glove with our partners in Alexandria, and I hope you'll join me in welcoming Alexandria Mayor Allison Silverberg.
Here we go. Good afternoon, and thank you, Chairman Katie Crystal. And on behalf of my colleagues on the Alexandria City Council and the entire Alexandria community, I'd like to express our huge congratulations to you and the whole Arlington County Board and your community. And we are so thrilled to be partnering with you with regard to National Landing. We are absolutely thrilled. I would also like to express heartfelt gratitude to Governor Ralph Northam for your strong leadership, and our heartfelt thanks as well to your outstanding staff. Today is a time for us to welcome Amazon to our communities, and we're excited for this opportunity to partner with you and look forward to working together for years to come. And I'm honored to serve as the mayor of Alexandria and to be part of this momentous announcement. It's especially fantastic to follow my neighbor and good friend, Chairman Crystal. Alexandria and Arlington have a very long history of working together, and this project will clearly strengthen our special and abiding friendship. Today's announcement marks the end of a long process that required extraordinary effort and teamwork on a regional scale. And this is a win for us and for our region, which continues to diversify its economy. I'm tremendously proud of all the hard work and regional collaboration that took place over the last 14 months to present Northern Virginia as the best choice for Amazon's new headquarters. And I'd like to recognize the leadership of our hardworking staff, specifically City Manager Mark Jinks, our Transportation Director Jan Lambert, and our Housing Director Helen McElvain, and the entire Economic Development team led by Stephanie Landrum. And of course, I also want to thank all my colleagues on the Alexandria City Councils. We've been through a lot together, and this has been a tremendous team effort. Alexandria is a city of kindness and compassion, and is an inclusive and culturally rich and historic community, home to families from over 125 countries. We know that Amazon values this diversity and that many of your future employees will choose to live in Alexandria, and we promise that they will not only find a welcoming and embracing community, but also an exceptional quality of life. And we are delighted that as part of today's announcement, Alexandria will become home to a new Center for Tech Excellence known as Virginia Tech's Innovation Campus. I'd like to thank Governor Northam and the General Assembly for including support for this revolutionary campus that will be right here in, well, just next door, a few feet away, in Alexandria as part of the Amazon headquarters partnership proposal that we put forward with Arlington. And to our friends at Virginia Tech, and in particular, the President, Tim Sands, thank you very much for your visionary leadership at Virginia Tech. We look forward to working with you and continuing to work with you as you've been in our city for many years. Alexandria is an innovation hub and has a long history of partnership with Virginia Tech. Tech's new innovation campus will build upon our innovation economy, anchored by the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office, as well as the National Science Foundation and numerous technology companies. So I'd like again to thank all of the distinguished guests for being here with us today. And Alexandria is incredibly proud to have played a role in helping to achieve this tremendous accomplishment for our region. It's a win for us, it's a win for our region, it's a game changer. We look forward to continuing our strong partnership with Governor Northam, the General Assembly, and the Commonwealth of Virginia, Arlington County, Amazon, and Virginia Tech. I now have the honor of introducing Senator Frank Ruff, Chair of the Major Employment and Investment Commission. Please, warm welcome to Senator Ruff.
Greetings from Southern Virginia. I'm honored to be here today on behalf of my colleagues in the General Assembly and the MEI Commission to congratulate all of our partners who made this possible. You know, it's always a beautiful day in Virginia when we have an economic development. This is an exceptionally beautiful day. Forget what it looks like outside. Winning one of Amazon's major new headquarters is a significant accomplishment for Virginia in its technology sector. The investment this project will bring to Virginia's education system to strengthen our tech talent pipeline will position the tech sector across the Commonwealth of Virginia. With approximately 8,500 employees in the Commonwealth, we have enjoyed a strong partnership with Amazon over the years. With tens of thousands of new high-tech jobs, the Amazon project represents a multi-generational opportunity to diversify our economy, reduce our over-reliance on the federal government, while dramatically strengthening our largest traded sector growth industry. I'm excited about that. The positive effect of this project will be felt throughout the Commonwealth of Virginia. The substantial increase in general fund revenues that are dedicated to K-12 education and the transportation investments will benefit all regions of the Commonwealth. These strategic investments will benefit Virginia in an effort to grow an already robust high-tech talent pool and get ahead of the curve on high-tech transportation priorities. Amazon will attract thousands of professionals to Virginia while also increasing demand for Virginia's college graduates. Doubling Virginia's tech talent pipeline is beneficial to all tech firms. To meet this demand, the highly sought-after technology graduates, Virginia's investments will accelerate the production of approximately 25,000 to 35,000 new degrees over what is currently produced in computer science and related programs over the next 20 years. I look forward to working with Amazon, Governor Northam, my colleagues in the General Assembly, and our local partners in this transformative project. Now, if you will please welcome my good friend, Matt James, the delegate, to hear the House's perspective.
Good afternoon. I bring you greetings from Hampton Roads, since you have Southwest Virginia here. Thank you, Senator Ruff, and my colleagues up in the General Assembly and everyone else that's here. I serve along with the Senator as a member of the General Assembly's MEI Commission. And in that role, I've had the opportunity to review Virginia's proposal to Amazon since the project's inception. And as an economic development, workforce development professional over 25 years, this is truly a significant announcement. It's one of those deals that we used to call, and we will continue to call, transformational. Virginia's proposal to Amazon, which was reviewed and approved by the MEI Commission, represents good fiscal stewardship. Well over half of the incentive package is structured as investments to grow the Commonwealth's talent pool and pipeline and enhance the transportation. Our investment in higher ed will double Virginia's number of college graduates entering the tech center, because currently a lot of those students get trained here and they leave the state. And this project will reverse that trend. The Commonwealth's universities and community college system will bring students from across Virginia into the tech talent pipeline to meet the needs of the state employers for decades to come. Importantly, new employers like Amazon will help us retain those college graduates here in Virginia and those good high-paying jobs. We know that addressing the workforce needs of our employers is one of the greatest opportunities that we have in the Commonwealth. So I'm thrilled that this was a significant focus of our winning proposal. In addition, our performance-based incentives to Amazon are structured so that the direct incentive payments will be made only after the company has produced those new jobs. The project will produce more than $3.2 billion in new general fund revenue after accounting for our incentives. This revenue can be used by investing in education infrastructure and other priorities across the state. So this project is not only important to it is important to Hampton Roads, as well as Northern Virginia. We have made sure that this targeted investment infrastructure will bolster our mobility in the region to reduce impact on housing prices. Importantly, This includes a commitment from the Virginia Housing Department Authority to invest $15 million per year in affordable housing in the region on top of the state's investment that the authority already makes. We know that Amazon is a tremendous partner to the state with significant infrastructure located across the Commonwealth. Amazon's selection of Virginia for a new headquarters will reinforce Virginia's leadership position in tech, corporate headquarters, innovation, venture capital, and entrepreneurship. We look forward to continuing to work with Amazon in the years ahead as they move forward with this significant investment. And now, I welcome to the stage, I love his first name, Matt Kelly, the CEO of JBG Smith. Thank you.
Thank you, Delegate James, and thank you all for being here today. Thank you, Governor Northam and Secretary Ball and other members of the MEI committee. It is incredibly exciting for us to host so many friends, partners, and stakeholders and esteemed members of the media here at National Landing today. I'm pleased to welcome members of our Board of Trustees as well. We hope you're enjoying the fine hospitality that only bottled water and a tear-down warehouse can provide. We stand here on the site, they actually made it look pretty nice though, I will say. We stand here on the site of the first to-be-built new office building that will house Amazon's new headquarters here at National Landing. As the owner of almost 9 million square feet of office and apartment buildings and land for over 7 million square feet of new development within a half-mile of this spot, we are so incredibly proud and thankful to Amazon for selecting JBG Smith as their landlord and partner in developing their new headquarters at National Landing. The key to this success was teamwork. When our region comes together to pursue opportunities or solve problems, we succeed. When our regional leaders came together to address the funding issues for Metro earlier this year, it mattered. Not only did it address a critical transportation need, but Amazon noticed, as did many others. Teamwork is why we are all standing here today and sitting. I want to thank our many partners in government, especially Governor Northam, Governor Hogan, and Mayor Bowser. Thank you to members of the Virginia House and Senate. Thank you to the entire Arlington County Board, County Manager Mark Schwartz, Alexandria's Mayor Silverberg, and Mayor-elect Wilson. Special thanks are reserved for the day-to-day team, like Stephen Murray and Lori Melanson of VEDP. My wife has a French last name, so I have to pronounce that just right when I say a French last name. I also want to thank our other local partners, Victor Hoskins, Christina Wynn, and Stephanie Landon. All of these individuals and their staffs deserve our collective gratitude for their skill and stamina. All of you did a spectacular job, and we thank you. I also want to thank the entire JBG Smith team, including Kai Reynolds, Dave Ritchie, Evan Reagan Levine, Andy Van Horn, Steve Muselis, and Ed Shiglassian in particular, for their critical roles for our success here today. I want to thank our Board of Trustees and our many other JBG Smith teammates for their role in all of this and for all of their hard work. The sustained level of their toil, the all-nighters, the over-the-top triple Lindy maneuvers was relentless and breathtaking, and I am proud to be their team captain. Of course, we all know the real hard work is ahead of us, not behind us. Since early 2017, JBG Smith has been underway with expansive plans to revitalize National Landing with the planning and development of new retail, apartment housing, and office space totaling over 7 million square feet. Amazon's selection of National Landing will enable us to accelerate these plans and to deliver on the promise of a more walkable, amenity-rich, mixed-use environment with abundant green space and local retail. Before the end of this year, we will commence construction on 130,000 feet of new retail on Crystal Drive, anchored by an Alamo Theater, a specialty grocery store, and a multitude of restaurants, bars, and neighborhood-serving small shops. We will also move forward with our plans for up to 4,000 new apartment units and almost 4 million square feet of commercial space in the coming years. All of this in addition to the space that Amazon will occupy. On top of this, Amazon's headquarters will enable us to accelerate our commitment to address the need for affordable workforce housing in our region. We launched the Washington Housing Initiative earlier this year with a commitment to develop or preserve up to 3,000 units of affordable workforce housing throughout our region over the next decade. We are incredibly proud to lead the charge on this innovative initiative, and we look forward to expanding its reach with the help of our public and private sector partners. Finally, Amazon coming to National Landing will help stabilize an almost 20% vacant office market that struggled to recover from BRAC, the global financial crisis, and sequestration. Amazon's presence will diversify our local economy and will anchor our technology sector, our growing technology sector here for decades to come. This is a total game changer for our local economy, for National Landing, and for JBG Smith, and we could not be more proud and more energized by the opportunity to be at the center of it. This is one of the most exciting developments in the history of our great city and this entire region, and it has been awe-inspiring to be part of this incredible team. I want to thank you all for being here today. Thank you to our government partners and to my JBG Smith teammates for all of your hard work. And thank you in particular to Amazon for voting with your feet to partner with us to develop your new headquarters at National Landing. Thank you.